So we all hear about investing in Bitcoin or stacking sats if you're a pleb such as myself. That's probably the preferred term. But what about investing in Bitcoin companies? Well, our next panel discusses exactly that. It's moderated by Nicolas Brand, and he's a partner at Lakestar. Please give Nicolas and the panel a warm welcome.
Hello. Howdy. That's an odd introduction, I gotta say. Very professionally run. Our name is Nicolas Brand at Lakestar, but let's face it, no one attends a panel because of the moderator. And so why don't you bring out the rest of the gang while I introduce you? So please, fellow panelists, make your way up on the stage. We've got one more chair coming. And we'll try to sit by order of the pictures on the screen. Guys, you're welcome to join me up here. Otherwise, I'll happily give an alternative speech. All right. Have a seat over there, Alan. There we are. All right. First leg of the panel done. And ladies and gentlemen, in terms of introductions, I'll start with me briefly. Nicolas Brand, I run fintech and all blockchain and crypto investing at a venture firm called Lakestar. And so we started investing in that space 6 years ago. And the longer I've been in it, the more I've become, I would say, a Bitcoin centrist, to borrow a term from my colleague Ben. And I think this is what qualifies me to be the moderator, I guess, Plan B thought. And in terms of logistics, by the way, it's awfully bright up here. And so we can't see any of you. You can be totally at ease. And same for you guys on the panel, there's no one there. It's just a wall of white. And so it's just the 4 of us, 5 of us having a good conversation. So let's dig right into it. Let's start with introductions. I'll actually go from the far end. Alan, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. So my name's Alan Farrington. In this space, I think I'm far better known as a somewhat serious writer, not at all serious tweeter, hence, oh, the profile picture's gone, but it was a laser-eyed squirrel before. But this is the other aspect, the not as widely known aspect of my work. So I, for the majority of my career in finance, I worked for an asset management firm called Baillie Gifford, which at the time of me leaving had about $300 billion under management. Most of what I did there was not Bitcoin related, but at the end of my tenure, I led our investments in Blockstream and in Lightning Labs. And the experience of that has led me to now leave to be doing Bitcoin investing full time.
We'll come back to the theme of institutional investor adoption of Bitcoin. I think one other aspect I'd be interested in, Alan, is around you co-authored a series of essays, which you choreographed into a book, which is called Bitcoin is Venice. Could you just tell us what's in the book and why did you give it that title?
Well, the title is kind of a joke. It's not really very helpful at all. It's named after one of the essays, which became one of the chapters. The subtitle, which is Essays on the Past and Future of Capitalism, is far more helpful, is far more descriptive. So it's it is that. Yeah, it's a lot of thinking around what capital is and ultimately towards the end of the book, how Bitcoin will affect it.
Recommended reading, everybody. Luis, who are you?
So my background coming from family office world, so I started looking at the Bitcoin-related equity, which is companies back in 2017, and we invested some of them, and later on I started my own investing journey into the Bitcoin company. Basically, placed my own money, and in 2020 I started a family office on my own, where we invest in Bitcoin-related strategy, and particularly Bitcoin companies' equity.
Where are you based, Luis? Do you have a geo-focus as part of that?
Pardon?
Where are you based? Do you have a geographic focus as
part
of how you invest?
In terms of Bitcoin company, we don't have a geographical focus. But I'm based out of Taiwan, which is an interesting country or island. But looking from globally, I think what is most interesting for me is still entrepreneurs globally working on the Bitcoin companies, not particularly geographically focused.
Mayra.
Hi. So I'm Mayra Tama. I've been in the gaming industry for 20 years now, starting in gaming startups early on, and then working in big companies like Sega, then back into the startup world, and now in investing. Initial Capital invests, and we're a gaming-focused investor, and so the bulk of our portfolio companies are gaming companies, gaming studios, and then we also invest in gaming technology and gaming platforms, anything that will help grow the market and accelerate the path of adoption.
And you're based out of where, Mayra?
I'm based out of Austin, Texas.
Thank you, too, for making the trip. And Oleg?
I'm Oleg, and I'm with Fulgur Ventures. Fulgur Ventures is supporting early-stage entrepreneurs focused on Bitcoin and the Lightning Network since 2019. And how I ended up there, I started my career early in the software industry. And I went through what they call technology cycles. Basically, I was lucky to be born into the pre-internet era of FidoNet, where you had to wake up at night and dial into the bulletin board system to get your messages and stuff. And I quickly, and you also had to assemble your own PC. And I quickly understood that nothing is in the technology world comes for granted. And then I went through a couple of technology cycles, and I learned how to scale software companies and how to build ecosystems. And then I was lucky to meet people who knew about Bitcoin and who knew more about the world and the macro and more than me. So I was able to learn from them, and I always had a passion to transform some knowledge and share it back to entrepreneurs. And that's what we're doing. We're a mission-driven VC supporting early-stage founders, helping to grow the Bitcoin ecosystem and increase adoption of Bitcoin as a potentially new monetary system.
And I think, isn't that fascinating, everybody? We've got a very diverse set of people up here on stage, from geography, from perspective and background. I think this is very powerful. So the first question I would love to explore with everyone is actually the one of focus. The panel title gives it away a little bit, investing into Bitcoin companies. And so as part of that, and maybe Mayra, you're a bit of the exception, but we'll come to that too. As part of you investing into the Bitcoin ecosystem, you've made a conscious choice by giving this your focus. You're not investing into tech companies, you're not investing into all kinds of tokens on blockchain and crypto. Maybe you are, but you have a Bitcoin focus. And so maybe, for the benefit of the audience, if you could kindly share a little bit where your conviction has come from and why you choose to give you that focus in the first place. Oleg, you want to kick us off?
So being a software person, I always had the passion to really understand how things work in detail. And as a side hobby, I did a little bit of angel investing, and I quickly learned how to make mistakes by investing into something that you don't understand how it works. And with the new technology, we believe it's really important to have an understanding of the main engineering and architectural concepts that are behind certain new words and new marketing concepts. So we believe that only by understanding how things work from inside out, we can build our internal insights into where things are going, and to differentiate between things that will work, that have a longer term foundations, solid foundations, and things that may not always work or do not work as they are described to work. So and there are so many things to learn about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ecosystem still. So by just keeping laser focused on learning ourselves about what's coming in Bitcoin, it's just easier and more efficient, I guess, to be an added value to the ecosystem and to help entrepreneurs build what they want to build.
So Oleg, on the back of understanding the technology, on the back of understanding how it works, this is where you draw a big part of your conviction?
So I've in my previous career cycle, I went through the cloud industry, from basically the cloud industry being very nascent to it developing into like a major, one of the major industries. And cloud had different like concepts like hybrid cloud, public cloud, private cloud, and also like people didn't have like trust in the cloud in the beginning. So that all kind of also repeats itself in the Bitcoin ecosystem as well. So by having this this knowledge, it's just like easier to, I guess, like understand what are the fundamentals in software and engineering concepts that that kind of predetermine success of Bitcoin and the Lightning Network as a technology for years to come.
And I think the answer then is yes.
Yeah.
And so fantastic. And Louis, you've taken something, I guess, which is traditional, a family office model. The term family office in itself is a long-dated concept, but you've given it a Bitcoin focus, and that is very innovative in its own right. And so, why?
So let's go back to the Bitcoin characteristic and Bitcoin as a money. And I think Bitcoin is the best asset, the best money to transfer wealth across generation. So we did kind of like a movie with MicroStrategy, Swan Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Magazine on this particular topic. It's a short 15-minute movie. Everybody can check it out on YouTube. So basically, a family office is just a vehicle for moving wealth across generation. And we pick Bitcoin because we think this is the best asset to do that.
Which generation are you talking about, Louis? Your own family,
My own family and my family's friend. We try to influence them by implementing that from our standpoint, from ourselves, and then try not to be annoying, but we trying to convince them to do the same thing.
I mean, from other family offices, what kind of reactions have you got? Like from the borderline insane to the wow, that's impressive.
Well, they think this is an alternative asset, right? It's a little bit risky. When I tend to advise them is that you should buy maybe 5% of that your total net worth or total cash position into Bitcoin. But we do more aggressively as a family office. But I do respect what other family office manager, when they're looking at the risk perspective of this asset, the volatility of the asset. I would just recommend the 5%, but it's up to each family office.
And then, Alan, like you said, you left a reputable traditional financial institution to give yourself a bit more focus. Why?
Well, I was thinking when you were going through the question that I'd actually like to push back just a little bit on the framing here, because I'm not sure that there really is that much focus involved. I think one of the things that excites me about Bitcoin, at least in terms of how it relates to my job, is how many different areas of industry, let's say, how many different economic areas it's likely to end up not just affecting, but profoundly changing. And so I think at the very least, payments, securities, energy, I don't think those are even remotely controversial. It's past that is when it starts to be more fun. And so, yeah, I'm not sure that, at least in terms of the investing that I have done already and that I would like to continue doing, I certainly intend to continue doing, that it will look like there is that much focus beyond Bitcoin. And I was thinking as well when you were asking the question that there was definitely a time when describing yourself as an internet investor, say, or describing a single investment even as an internet investment was meaningful or was helpful. I think we're well past that now. And I think it probably won't be that long, and maybe 10 years or so. It's hard to say these kinds of things precisely, but there certainly will come a time when describing an investment as a Bitcoin investment or a portfolio, say, as having a Bitcoin focus just won't really tell you anything at all about it. So, yeah, I maybe just leave it at that.
Yeah, which is what you're implicitly saying is around Bitcoin seems to be a focused, perceived to be potentially a niche thing today, but it encompasses many things that have to do with everything that goes on around us. So it'll be mainstream in the future?
Well, I think maybe I can tie that to an answer to the direct answer to the question, though, which is that is certainly not at all widely understood. And so that's the reason that I want to be more involved, because I feel like there's just an enormous investment opportunity to exploit there. If you think of it, I guess, as the asymmetry of understanding around exactly that point. An enormous amount of opportunities are being dramatically mispriced because it is thought of as this weird niche within traditional finance.
Which is a great segue into talking to you, Mayra, for a split second, where you kind of have the other side's perspective, right? Your forte and your background has been in gaming with initial capital, as you alluded to. This is where you invest. Yet, we're here at a Bitcoin-focused conference. You find yourself sitting on a panel. And so this is not by coincidence, but maybe share a little bit from the intersection of gaming and Bitcoin, or the gaming and blockchain in particular. What are sort of the portfolio companies that you work with? What are they looking to get out of it?
So the Lightning Network has really changed the gaming industry, specifically microtransactions, and really having that bidirectional value transfer between gamer and game and vice versa has changed the way gaming developers look at Bitcoin. And so we're the Lightning Network. So at Initial Capital, the DNA of our team, we're builders, we're entrepreneurs, we've worked in games for such a long time. And for us, the Lightning Network really has opened up this other space for us to invest in. We're big believers in Bitcoin, and we want to grow the market. But we do have a lot of gaming investors within our current portfolio that are evaluating Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, and other chains. And so there are lots of times, we have to talk through some of the things that are important to them in consideration.
Ooh, that's juicy. So I'm not going to push on the question of like Bitcoin, yes or no, but more from a different perspective of some of your gaming companies, they're making a choice of having to interact with a certain protocol. And so I will dodge the Bitcoin yes or no question, but what are the gaming companies looking for? How are they making their decision?
So you don't have to dodge the question. So it's definitely Bitcoin, yes. But we do have, I guess maybe I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that our companies, that are important for them, and one being community. And so community in the gaming space equates to free user acquisition. So having a really noisy, engaged, buzzy community is really comforting for our developers, because that allows them the certainty that if they're going to launch a game on a chain, that they will have the users and the install base there looking, having eyeballs on it and being actively engaged. The other part is funding. And so there are others, and they're looking at funding because other chains are also subsidizing heavily their development, sometimes 7 figures. And so we're there as a gaming investor, specifically focused on trying to encourage our gaming developers to build on Bitcoin. And so we're providing the capital when there are also other ways for them to get it through other chains. The other part are NFTs. And so some of our game developers want to be able to mint NFTs cheaply. And with regards to NFTs and NFT marketplaces currently right now, not really possible on Bitcoin, except for instance, Liquid, but the community is not there. And so again, that begs the question on how do we bring the community for our Bitcoin-focused game developers and the funding and the technical limitations to change. So we have some amazing companies, actually quite a few that are here right now, who are developing on Bitcoin. We have Thunder Games, who are really broadening the Bitcoin market right now, and they're super unique in what they're doing and focusing on the hyper-casual space. And they're a great funnel for onboarding casual gamers that don't have any exposure to Bitcoin and really doing it in a gamified way. So we're super excited about them. They just launched a game, Club Bitcoin Solitaire, so everyone check it out. And start stacking your sats. We also have Metabit, and they are again in the casual gaming space, and they are focusing on a simulation game, a tycoon crafting simulation game, and again trying to onboard as many non-crypto native users on Bitcoin, sort of tackling the free-to-play and potentially play-to-earn. And then, like I mentioned previously, we also invest in infrastructure and technology, gaming technology. And so we've invested in ZBD, or Zebedee, however you choose to pronounce it. And they have one of the most amazing, as you know, one of the most amazing teams in Lightning Network. And they're creating tools that are allowing for game devs to operate Lightning Network powered games. And they're really removing that layer for game developers. From a game developer perspective, the native know-how, they're removing that, and you could be integrated within a day into onboarding users onto games. And then we have Albi, which is like one of the best #1 browser extensions in Lightning Network for payments. So we're super excited about the intersection of gaming and Bitcoin, and any way that we can help accelerate the market, because we believe in the growth of the market.
Well, we can tell, and I think if Mayra says the community is important, I think, guess what? You are the community, so well done for making it out here. And which is also a great segue into the next part of the conversation, Mayra. I wanted to ask all of you to bring it to life a little bit with examples, because what does a Bitcoin company actually do? And so thank you for sharing a few at the intersection of gaming and Bitcoin, but I'll open it up to the rest of you. Maybe Luis, starting with you. When you say the family office, you invest into it, elaborate a little bit on what it means for buying the coins. Are you actually buying into equity of companies that are doing Bitcoin related stuff? And if so, what are they doing? And just shed some light on that.
So when we first think about investing in Bitcoin, we're investing in the asset, right? And we need companies and we need technology to build around the asset to actually utilize the asset, right? So that's why we invest in custody. For example, we invest in on-chain capital early on, very, very early on, in the idea that they can do this multi-sig custody, which, as a family office is, you want to control your Bitcoin. And for anyone in the world right now holding the asset, they want to control the asset, right? So we kind of think about in that direction that, how can we invest in a company and the company can help us utilize the asset. And another example is this Bitcoin collateralized lending. Basically, you can post Bitcoin as a collateral and you can take out fiat money, right? And I think this is a great technology that Bitcoin can allow using the multi-sig custody solution. So your Bitcoin will not under any other's custodian. So I think that kind of like financial element and that Bitcoin provide is interesting to me, and that's what we focus in terms of investing. Also, speaking about energy, I think Bitcoin and energy is very connected, and we investing in technology company that solves some of the very difficult mining problems, like renewable energy sector. How that can connect it to mining is a very difficult technology problem that those companies will invest trying to solve. Also, Lightning, we are not that big in the Lightning, but we think Lightning has potential to become like a payments, fast payment route for Bitcoin and any other currency in a way. And I think you can utilize Lightning in a way as an asset management firm. Basically, we can also post collateral like staking, and you can get a Bitcoin yield return on the Lightning Network for providing the Lightning liquidity.
And when you say you cut across these different sectors that you mentioned within the Bitcoin ecosystem, how do you do it? What's the makeup of your team? What are the profiles of these colleagues internally to help you successfully pick the investments?
Basically, it's how, first we need to be ideology aligned, right? We need to think about the same direction that Bitcoin is the monetary system, and it's the best monetary asset, and it's the best wealth, asset to transfer wealth across generation. When you get at least align on that, and then you look at entrepreneurs' past experience, right? Did he start a company before, successfully exit, and he want to do another company? So those are like really good, metric to follow.
And Luis, what kind of people do you employ internally at the family office? So what are those profiles?
Pardon?
So the people that you employ at your family office,
Yep.
is it you and you've got the background? Do you have some specialist expertise that you have in-house?
We have a relatively small team, right? Just me, my family, and couple professional financial advisor that helping us, and those are like close friends and family, and they work in the different industry. So we don't actually do hire people help us to manage the Bitcoin. I don't think we need that. So a lot of investment decisions made by me and the shareholder of the company.
Then maybe Oleg, from your perspective, you've got the technical lens a little bit, and I think with that, what kind of companies have you found yourself backing in the last few quarters?
So at Fulgur, we believe in the potential of like Bitcoin becoming the monetary system and the monetary
what system?
The monetary system,
Monetary
the global
system,
monetary
yes.
system. So it has like multiple aspects, and since Bitcoin is designed in layers like the on-chain layer and the Lightning Network and the potential extensions of the layers still to come. We are trying to take a holistic approach and support startups on multiple areas, such as like on-off ramps, applications such as games, and different other use cases that can drive adoption, such as like rewards, for example, rewards. Yeah, and
What do you mean by that, rewards?
like when you swipe your card and you can get Bitcoin as a cashback, or when miles or other kind of incompatible points can be replaced with the like Bitcoin rewards that have ultimate liquidity and are interchangeable with any other Bitcoin rewards. So we take this whole like holistic approach and try to help different parts of the ecosystem work together. And probably like the biggest challenge here is to really kind of like see how this whole ecosystem will evolve, to make sure that the timing is right, because we've also learned that like bad timing can like kill an idea very quickly. And since again, like Bitcoin is a monetary system with much more aspects than just like software. There are different timing and other like constraints that need to be taken into account to make the right bets.
Is now good or bad time? Is now good or bad time? Where are you in your cycle?
It's always a good time to be part of Bitcoin community. It's always good time to acquire more Bitcoin. And during the bear market, it's a great time to build, because there is less noise and less distractions. It's a great time to build now.
And I think the rewards program is particularly interesting. So you basically can spend yourself into becoming wealthy in the future. This is really powerful. And so, Alan, what are you excited about in the investable universe within Bitcoin?
I honestly don't even think there's a specific thing. I mean, it goes a little bit back to my answer before about how many different areas Bitcoin is likely to touch. But I mean, maybe to not repeat myself, I can focus the answer instead on, I guess, Bitcoin itself, and what a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've been speaking to are focused on at a more, I guess, granular level and with a more immediate focus. And there really is an enormous spread. So, I mean, I'd say probably Lightning gets a majority of the attention. It's probably understandable why, just given the rapid growth of the network in the past few years. But there really is a huge range. So I mean, I'm in touch with a bunch of companies who are involved not just in mining in terms of running like a mining farm, but technology around mining, whether it's mining pools or like ASIC manufacturing or even kind of add-ons where it's like the picks and shovels to mining, that kind of thing. Within Bitcoin scaling itself, I obviously did mention Lightning already, but there's a few people I'm aware of who are building, I guess what you would call layer 3 protocols on top of Lightning. But then even in addition, there's some companies I'm interested in that are building on Liquid, on There's one on RSK that I'm quite keen on getting more involved with. Even Stacks, RGB. There's one. I mean, it really is. It's very, very widespread. And maybe just a comment on that too. That because obviously I've been a professional investor for a very long time, but only very recently. First, within my TradFi job, was able to kind of shift some of the attention to more Bitcoin, and now that I've left that, I'm just doing it full time. This is a very recent development, I think, at least in my own experience, that there is such a proliferation of ways of building on Bitcoin, and I think it really just comes down to I guess capital naturally compounding itself, right? If you go back a couple of years, there was the focus on companies that were certainly large enough for institutions to become involved in. If they weren't just exchanges, which it makes sense why they would be first in terms of providing an on and off ramp, it was very sort of deep technical infrastructure, which I think is now bearing fruits.
Yet expand on that a little bit. When you say TradFi, you refer to traditional finance, and so maybe we could even classify Bailey Gifford into that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
And
that's not controversial.
How do you get these type of houses to learn and engage with this new phenomenon? How do you do that?
Oh yeah, sure. So, well, I think so. Bailey Gifford specifically. I mean, I left on very, very good terms. I have nothing really bad to say about them, and I think my job there was made quite easy by what their investment philosophy is in the first place. It's extremely long-term. It's sort of deliberately contrarian, deliberately looking for disruption in technology. I mean, it's basically set up to accept Bitcoin or take Bitcoin seriously, let's say. So that is maybe not the best example. And I think, the fact that they led around in Blockstream shows that, they are taking it seriously.
They are.
There are some other, Fidelity's been certainly taking it seriously for far longer than Bailey Gifford has. So there are some examples of that. But I guess to try to answer the question just more generally, how do you get TradFi as a whole to take it seriously? I think there's probably one problem and maybe two ways that problem can be solved. So the problem is somewhat related to the very first answer, that this is all still seen not even as Bitcoin but as crypto, right? As its own. There's the crypto industry, right? And that's obviously very difficult for people like us to really take all that seriously as a proposition, as like a way of splitting up the investable universe. I think there are, as I mentioned, maybe two ways that this will start to be solved. So one is that, as I mentioned in the previous answer, not that many people, probably very, very few people, probably just Bitcoiners, really appreciate the potential of Bitcoin to start to affect other industries. But that will naturally change as companies, whether it's in mining affecting energy and Lightning affecting payments, so on and so forth, as they start to grow, as they start to just succeed on their own merits, that change, I think, will force itself. That's a nice one to focus on, though, because that, I think, is a rare example of where it's not something that just Bitcoin can do, right? You really do need companies to be pushing forward for that perception to start to change. It's not just going to be a function of the price of Bitcoin, say, or the number of Bitcoiners out there. You need to see the evidence of this working. The second problem, though, is something that I think, unfortunately, maybe a contrast to the first one, isn't something that anybody can try to do anything about. I think it really is just a function of time, which is the volatility of the price. So part of the reason that crypto is seen as an industry isn't necessarily that misunderstanding that I've mentioned a couple of times. That may be part of it, but I think there's an additional problem of how these assets end up being correlated with what else might be in a portfolio. And so as great as a Bitcoin company might be, or let's say a mining company, just to be really specific, as great as it might be, its valuation is going to be affected by the price of Bitcoin. It's probably going to be levered to the price of Bitcoin, even if it is operationally perfectly fine. And so you need, I think, first of all, the volatility to come down a little bit, which there's nothing anybody can do about clearly. But maybe there might even come a time where the effect of this association flips, where if fiat starts to basically fail faster than it seems like it's failing now, this could become a positive thing, because it's undeniable, right, that it's almost true by definition that a Bitcoin company is exposed to the price of Bitcoin. It doesn't really matter what they do. It would almost be weird if that wasn't the case. So if that also changes, it could become attractive, whereas now it's sort of a reason to limit your exposure. So I think if both of those changes, TradFi will get a lot more interested.
Well, it's a tricky one with volatility. Yes, it needs less volatility for it to be accepted as in a broader context, but at the same time, it means that price appreciation will be less. And so as we're sitting here today, probably many of us are still hoping for tremendous volatility to the upside, and that's really important, unless you change the perspective, which is you denominate everything in Bitcoin. And so maybe from your guys' perspective,
I can answer that very quickly, though.
Will there be Bitcoin-denominated capital markets, Bitcoin-denominated funds? Do you think that is going to happen?
Oh, eventually, yes.
Agree.
Luis, what do you measure when you report the progress, what do you measure it in dollars today still?
Of course, definitely Bitcoin denominated, right? And I think the way I want to build my family offices, is this notion of thinking about Bitcoin as the capital, and how you're going to deploy that capital and generate more asset return on that particular Bitcoin asset. I think that will be the trend, and that will be the Bitcoin finance of the future. I think we definitely go in that direction. Either you are doing VC or asset management, I think it's all hybrid.
And this is the most fascinating thing. I think this is a really important conclusion from the conversation for everybody. Bitcoin is encompassing many industries. There will be Bitcoin capital markets, so this is going to extend beyond just investing into the token and into companies that treat Bitcoin as a product. But there'll be Bitcoin credit, Bitcoin lending and borrowing, everything that makes up capital markets. And that to me is a very, very important conclusion as part of the conversation. I think, is there a language challenge still, Mayra? Maybe a little bit. You've got the unique lens of the gaming community trying to figure this out, and the crypto community, Bitcoin community figuring out the gaming community. How much of translating do you have to do at initial between the two sides?
That's a very good question. Quite a bit sometimes, actually. We have quite a few existing portfolio companies that are pivoting into the space. And so we spend a lot of time educating them on the possibilities of Bitcoin, the Lightning Network. And we have really interesting companies. I mean, one of the ones that I didn't mention was Pink Frog, who are also sort of building a social network. And so really interesting companies are coming after conversations when they think about, could we do one thing, and then looking at it with a lens of Bitcoin, and then realizing all the possibilities when you have that, like I said before, the bidirectional transfer of value, right, between game and gamer. And then the opportunity becomes massive when looking at it like that. So we do spend quite a bit of time with companies that don't initially come in with a Bitcoin focus. And then we can't obviously force them, but we encourage them as much as we possibly can. But yeah, we see the whole gamut of games, right? But we focus a lot on Bitcoin.
In the interest of time, last open kind of question. What are you worried about? There's probably very powerful talent and contribution in the ecosystem. And so what are you worried about so people can actually address it? Tough one.
Yeah, I'm worried about there's not enough builder actually thinking about Bitcoin.
Say that again, not enough?
Not enough builders.
Users.
Builders.
Builders, yes,
Yeah.
builders.
Builders drive users. But yeah, I think we need more entrepreneurs try to think in terms of in the Bitcoin way. I mean, the Bitcoin way is to admit that Bitcoin has win in terms of competition across all crypto assets. And I think we are in a period when talent and capital centralize, and what's winning, right? It's going to be centralized on the Bitcoin protocol, and so I encourage everyone try to build or build a business. They should pick Bitcoin, and they should be built on top of Bitcoin. And I'm worried that because crypto is more attractive in terms of like the price is skyrocketing more, and then more builders will go to there, building uses fin. So I think I encourage there more builders going to build on Bitcoin.
I think it's a really important point. So less focus on price of Bitcoin, more on builders, users, adoption, these types of things. Alan, I'll ask you a totally different question. Congratulations on getting married recently.
Thank you.
I know your wife is probably in the audience right
she's
now.
here somewhere.
Was the word Bitcoin mentioned in any of the wedding speeches?
No. Well, I know the answer is no. I think it may also have been the case that there was some sort of threat if that did happen.
Fantastic.
I don't remember. I may have just blanked the whole thing.
Thank you.
Not the wedding, the part about the threats.
And then Oleg, Bitcoin is a very global phenomenon. What do you call home yourself?
We operate globally, and yeah, I'm a citizen of the world as well, I guess. And speaking of communities, I think what is quite underappreciated in Bitcoin and in general in crypto space, that Bitcoin and the way it is designed and built is probably like the only way to ultimately scale to the largest community possible. Because of its engineering design as a trustless system that scales in layers. I think it's a very, very underappreciated fact, and that's probably one of my worries, that people will make a lot of mistakes before they finally arrive at the same conclusion, that this is the way to scale community and get mass adoption.
The last question to you, Mayra. You live in a very peculiar town where there's also great community. Where is that, and what's going on there?
In Austin?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Bitcoin Mecca.
Bitcoin Mecca,
of
right
the
after
US.
Lugano.
Austin has an amazing Bitcoin community. We have great investors that are there. We have they call it the Bitcoin Common. So there's lots of developer meetups and developer events and lots of social activities that are around Bitcoin. So I moved from California a couple of years ago, and it was a fortuitous move to come into Austin and have such a wonderful community in Bitcoin.
And as they say in Zurich, where I live, to be on time is already too late, which means we're wrapping up the panel 1.5 minutes before the end of time. So give it up for Alan, Louis, Mayra, and Oleg. Thank you very much.
All right.